I'm fired up, man. I am. Because this Dolphins defense dominated the Jacksonville Jaguars in joint practice today. It was amazing to see, amazing to hear that after the struggles against the Bears in joint practice, the struggles last week against the Lions, that they came out with a fire inside of them to the point where they just bullied Jacksonville at points in today's joint practice. I am Nick Roloff. This is Dolphins Today, and we'll start with the defense because the pass rush is just flat out disruptive. I said it in the Chat Sports offices today, and I got major pushback. I think this group of 4 edge rushers, Judon, Phillips, Chubb, is the, without a question, best edge rush quadrant, whatever you want to call them, in the National Football League. I know the Giants are solid. I know the Vikings have a good one. I know the Texans have a good one. Don't matter to me. Those 4 are going to be so dang good. And they were just honing in on Trevor Lawrence and this Jaguars offense all day long. And when you factor in Zach Sieler, Benito Jones, creating some pressure up front in the interior. Kenneth Grant getting active as well. Didn't participate in practice today. Minor injury. Nothing should be concerning there. Just wanted to quickly update you on that. This is a group that can be absolutely dominant and potentially save this defense as a whole because we know how much the secondary is a concern. Today they played really well. We'll get to that in just one second. But the pass rush is going to be awesome. Make sure you follow over on Twitter because I have more Dolphins news and updates over there. And I was live tweeting about Dolphins practice earlier today. So if you want up-to-date wall-to-wall coverage, at Nick_Roloff is the handle. Go get it. Let's get to 2,300 followers. But the story of the day, I wanted to briefly mention the pass rush, but the true story of the day is the secondary because they performed at the highest level that I have seen this entire training camp and preseason to this point. I know the Jaguars did not have Travis Hunter participating in practice today, but it is a very positive development that the Dolphins secondary not only held their own, but I would say outperformed the wide receivers for Jacksonville. Brian Thomas Jr. still got his a couple times, but overall, edge Miami secondary. We'll start with the first update when it comes to the veteran Mike Hilton. In red zone work, he had a near interception, couldn't haul it in. It was on a screen pass, so Hilton was able to read the keys, read the offense, jump the route, and he only almost came down with an interception where maybe he could go the other way for a touchdown. But I want to talk about the veteran safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick, because he has had such a good camp after joining the Dolphins once again, and he had an unbelievably good day as well today. He intercepted Trevor Lawrence in the goal line. Fitzpatrick read it perfectly, jumped the route, and grabbed the INT, and reports say it probably would have been a pick 6 as well. And he has just been a difference maker all camp long. I know the Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith trade was a major bummer, and you would probably be right in saying Miami would be better off in terms of talent-wise if they kept Jonnu and Jalen Ramsey instead of having Minkah Fitzpatrick. But I do believe that Minkah has had an extremely good camp and is in line for a massive bounce-back season. He was still a Pro Bowler, and he's still voted on as a top 10 safety in the football league right now. But I think we might be back in the top 5 discussions after this year because of how well he will be used by Anthony Weaver in terms of stopping the run, being the free safety roaming guy in center field, maybe defending in the nickel at times as well. Everything that I've seen just tells me he is in line for a big year. The Dolphins restructured his contract to give him more guaranteed money, made him happy. Good move by Greer because now Minkah's in a good headspace. He's leading this defense, and he is going to have a massive year. Also really solid in the run game. Let's get another hype segment going here because Jason Marshall Jr. continues to impress. And listen, my guy Ruski's letting me have it on Twitter. I'm going to continue to shout him out every time Jason Marshall Jr. does something good, but had a really good PBU in one-on-ones against Parker Washington, a mid-round pick in 2024 out of Penn State for Jacksonville. And then in 11-on-11s, he had a really good PBU while defending Jason Marshall Jr. His transition to the slot in the full-time nickel cornerback at this point has been very smooth. And I actually think that we might see Marshall Jr. as the starter for Miami week 1. I mean, I think the starting cornerback room might be Storm Duck, Jack Jones, and Jason Marshall Jr. with Mike Hilton as cornerback 4. That is just a guess. That is just a prediction, but it feels like that is where things are heading. And with Marshall Jr. playing well in training camp and in these joint practices, well, maybe it's the right move. So what say you? Do you think Jason Marshall Jr. will start for the Dolphins defense? I don't think it's a guarantee, but it feels like it might be heading that way. Type Y for yes or type N for no. The other corner I mentioned that is probably going to start, Jack Jones. His stock is through the roof. If you didn't buy stock a couple weeks ago when he had a really good first week of practice, you missed out. And if you sold your stock after Amon-Ra St. Brown cooked them last Wednesday, you're missing out. Because ever since that practice, good practice on Thursday, good performance in the preseason game on Saturday, and this entire week, he was absolutely phenomenal. Picked off Trevor Lawrence in red zone work and took it to the house. Had a convoy back in the 6. I said it on Twitter. He's a starting corner. Jack Jones is a roller coaster. The highs will be very high. The lows will be very low. But the way he's speaking to the media, the way he is carrying himself at Dolphins practice, it feels like there's an added maturity there. And I'm willing to take the lows a little bit in terms of him getting burnt with the highs, because he can change a game for you in a good and bad way, but I'd rather have that than just bad cornerback play across the board, which is probably what would happen if we started some of these other guys on the roster. I wanted to show the final defensive sequence for Miami before we move over to the offense. PBU by Zach Sieler on first down. It was a gotta have it down or a possession. Each team gets one to close out practice. The Jaguars went first. Sieler batted down Lawrence's pass at the line of scrimmage. So brings up 2nd and 10. And then another incomplete pass. Trevor Lawrence tried to fit in a tight window throw over the middle of the field to Parker Washington, and it was incomplete. Minkah Fitzpatrick and Iafatu Melifonwu said, straps! I don't know if it was dropped or PBU'd, but it was incomplete nonetheless. And then on 3rd down, Bradley Chubb and Jordan Brooks came on a heater, baby, and got the sack. So gotta have it possession for each team to round out the sequence for defense and offense for the Jags. And the defense got the better of them pretty easily there, getting him off the football field in 1, 2, 3. It was belt to ass today, folks, by this Dolphins defense. And I like the way the defense is trending, man. I really am. Like, they obviously had a really bad day last Wednesday against the Lions. That's not that big of a concern to me because they bounced back and had a better day on Thursday and dominated today. They dominated the Bears in their first joint practice, split them in the second joint practices with the Lions, and dominated the Jags. So this defense trending upward, where they have a pretty favorable first month of this season, where they play a bad offense in Indianapolis, a at best average offense in New England. Yeah, they got to play the Bills, but then they play a bad offense in the Jets. This is a golden opportunity for Miami to start the year 3-1, and the defense get the confidence rolling early against 3, at least at best, average offenses in the NFL. Get started with PrizePicks today, the sponsor of this episode of Dolphins Today by Chat Sports, and with preseason football here, college football here, and Week 1 on the horizon. Don't miss any of the action right now. I won my entry in Week 2 of the preseason for Miami. I'll be back again for Week 3. You can bet on that. PrizePicks is so simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. They have so many different states where it's able to be played in. California, Texas, our state of Florida, Georgia as well. They allow quick, fast, safe, secure withdrawals with Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more. I have a 3-player entry for the entire preseason week this final weekend. I also have one specifically for Miami on Saturday night, but less than Joe Milton passing yards, he stinks. Alec Iomanar, more than 19.5 receiving yards, and then more than Ja'Cory, Krosky, Merritt, I'm buying the hype. 26.5 rushing yards, 3-player entry there. Join me and the millions of others on PrizePicks. Download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. As good as the defense was, it's time to talk about the offense. And it wasn't as positive a day for the offense. There were still a lot of good things, but they were out of sorts at times as well. I will say Tua was extremely sharp early. He was putting the ball on the money in 1v1s, which obviously is very easy to do. But then when they went into red zone work, he was extremely good. Had back-to-back 15-yard touchdown tosses, one to Malik Washington in the back corner of the end zone, which, by the way, I watched the video. I saw it. The offensive line did a tremendous job. They gave Tua about what felt like 6 seconds in the pocket and was able to find Malik Washington coming across the back end of the end zone. And then he stuck a fastball to Jalen Waddle on the next one for another 15-yard touchdown. So it was a good day for Tua. It was also a good day for the wide receiver depth once again. We have talked about it ad nauseum. The two deepest positions on this roster is wide receiver and edge rusher. And it continues to be on display every single practice, whether it is a joint practice or a practice amongst themselves. You look at guys like Tahj Washington, D. Eskridge, Theo Weiss Jr., Malik Washington. You just get excited and you salivate over these guys potentially being able to come in and make plays in different scenarios. Tahj Washington, looking to confirm a roster spot on the 53-man, did a great job today. Had a really strong 1v1 period, had a contested catch on a back shoulder ball from Tua, then beat a man vertically, stopped on a dime, and Tua put it on him perfectly with 3 to 4 yards of separation. Tua was accurate, he was anticipating well today, and Tahj Washington was taking advantage, getting open, also had an extremely good rep in special teams as well, adding more value. Make yourself impossible to get rid of. He is a good depth wide receiver and a valued member of the special teams unit. Tahj Washington, I'll see you next Tuesday on the 53-man roster. And make sure you are subscribed because the season is right around the corner. But next week, when the Dolphins 53-man roster is announced, we will have you covered with a video announcing the official roster for 2025 season, as well as who could be on the practice squad on Wednesday. So subscribe and don't miss a thing. I want to highlight Nick Westbrook-Keeney and D. Eskridge here again. Westbrook-Keeney had a couple good routes in 1v1s, routing up the corner, according to Travis Wingfield. But then the first play of the period was a Tua 40-yard bomb to D. Eskridge, who just simply beat his man on a go route, and Tua laid it better than he could have if it was right here on a handoff. D. Eskridge later in practice had a seam shot. In final sequence for Miami, just like the one we talked about earlier with the Jaguars offense, the Dolphins would have had to settle for a 61-yard field goal attempt, so not the best there. But on the early portion, when Miami was still on their own side of the football field, on a 4th and 5, Eskridge had a 18-yard seam shot by Tua. Eskridge just continues to make plays. He's your wide receiver 5. I think Tahj Washington is your wide receiver 6. And unfortunately, no fault to his own, Theo Weiss Jr. is probably going to end up being cut and maybe traded because I don't think he's going to make it to the practice squad if they release him, and I don't see Miami keeping 7 wide receivers. I will round out the show with some negative news because there were 3 injuries that we have to talk about and mention, which is a bummer because the rest of the show was so positive. We'll start with the running back injury. Jalen Wright, who has had, I would call an up and down, but trending downward preseason and training camp, walked off the practice field a little bit slow today with an injury. Ollie Gordon then took most of the reps in practice when playing with the ones. The depth at running back is very, very thin. Achane is banged up and is not going to practice, might even miss the first week. McDaniel says no. Calf injuries are scary. We'll see. With Wright being injured, it's Ollie Gordon, Aaron Shamklin, and Mike Boone. I would expect Miami to potentially sign a running back just to help them get through the game on Saturday evening. We'll see. But Brian Robinson Jr., the running back that is on the trade block the most and is essentially guaranteed to be traded or cut by the Commanders at this point, is a player Miami has been linked to. Brian Robinson Jr., I'm texting you at 2 a.m. on a Friday night coming home from the bar are you up? I'm trying to get you in Miami because you'd be a great complementary back to Achane when fully healthy. And if Achane goes down, I would trust Brian Robinson Jr. to be the RB1 with this football team, convert short yard situations at a pretty good rate. I believe I saw a stat use 26 of 38 last season on 3rd and 1 scenarios, so not bad there. This is a player that I think Miami Dolphins fans should be keeping an eye on as a potential trade target for Miami. Should the Dolphins trade for Brian Robinson Jr., though? Let me know. Make the call. Type T for trade or type P for pass. Another injury note, wide receiver A.J. Henning, who is going to be released, but just another good depth piece for the final preseason game. Probably won't be able to go on Saturday evening, which means he could be put on IR and the Dolphins could stash him potentially, or he just flat out gets cut, maybe added a running back there. He was carted to the medical facility gate and then used crutches to move around because of a foot injury. Not ideal for the UDFA wide receiver out of Northwestern. Another concerning injury, Jordyn Brooks. We were so close to making it through joint practice without a major injury. I know Wright is banged up, but Brooks, this is not good. He got injured, lower body injury, was gingerly walking off the practice field, stayed and watched the final plays of practice, but walked off the field with a limp. 2.5 weeks away from the season opener, Jordyn Brooks is the signal caller. He's the linebacker one. Now, you might be able to survive it because you have good depth with Tyrell Dodson, KJ Brett, and Willie Gay Jr. But if you lost Jordyn Brooks for a couple weeks, that would be detrimental, man. He is just such a leading presence in terms of physicality, stopping the run, also being with a cover a little bit, something he really improved on a year ago. He is as vital to this defense as anyone, especially after you get past that defensive line. I hope he's not banged up and he's able to go week 1. We'll keep you updated on that. Another injury. This happened this morning. He did not practice today, but cornerback Kendall Sheffield is going to be out for several days, maybe a week. He was listed as the starting corner opposite of Storm Duck in the first unofficial depth chart before week 1 of the preseason. He has since lost that spot to either Jason Marshall Jr. or Jack Jones. But either way, we'll have to monitor if Sheffield makes it through the 53-man roster cutdown day this upcoming Tuesday due to that injury. All right, final note on today's show. I know it's a loaded one, but hey, this is why you subscribe to the channel. Mike McDaniel actually said that the starters for Miami will play a little bit. He said this before the joint practice on Thursday. He said the starters will see a little bit of action in the preseason finale on Saturday. It will be all dependent on how they did in practice. And with the practice going pretty well for Miami, I would imagine it's maybe one drive. Like, I do like them playing because you have to get another practice in terms of getting prepared to play, going through warm-ups, getting the right mental mindset. That allows you to have the third time you're doing that in week 1. If they played poorly, I would have said maybe they play the whole first quarter. But with it going well for Miami today, it might best be one drive, and then we'll see Zach Wilson and the backups on defense as well for the rest of the game. And we will be here for that Saturday preseason finale. Remember, game is at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and Jeffrey Cooperstein will be live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time. Subscribe, join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got videos going out between now and that preseason finale as well, so be on the lookout.